Have you ever found yourself in a season of uncertainty, wondering what's next? Have you ever questioned if God is truly in control when life seems to be falling apart? Maybe you're standing at a crossroads, afraid to take the next step because the future feels unclear. But let me remind you of this truth today. God knows exactly what's next for you. He sees the road ahead, even when you don't. He has already written the next chapter of your life. And His plans are far greater than anything you could ever imagine. You may feel stuck. You may feel like time is passing and nothing is changing. But what if I told you that right now, in this very moment, God is preparing something beyond your understanding? What if I told you that your struggles, your delays, and even your disappointments are part of His perfect plan? You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. God is working behind the scenes, setting things in motion that you cannot yet see. So today I invite you to lean in, open your heart, and listen closely, because what I'm about to share could shift your perspective on the future. If you've ever wondered whether God has a plan for you, if you've ever doubted whether He knows what's coming next, then this message is for you. Get ready, because by the end of this speech, you'll walk away with a renewed confidence that your life is in the hands of a God who never fails. There are moments in life when we find ourselves standing at the edge of uncertainty, looking ahead and wondering what's next. We try to plan, we try to prepare, and yet there are times when nothing seems to go the way we expected. And it's in those moments that doubt begins to creep in. We start asking questions. God, do you really have a plan for me? Do you see what I'm going through? Do you know what's coming next? I want to remind you today that God does know. He sees every detail of your life, every decision you will ever make, every trial you will ever face. Long before you were born, He had already written your story. Before you took your first breath, He knew exactly where you would be at this moment. And yet so often we struggle to trust Him. We want to see the whole picture. We want to understand everything before we take the next step. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith is believing that even when we don't understand, even when we can't see what's ahead, God is still in control. There's a passage in Scripture that reminds us of this truth. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." Now that's a promise. That's not just an encouraging thought. It's a truth that we can stand on. God is saying, if you trust me, I will guide you. If you surrender your plans to me, I will direct your steps. But here's the challenge. He doesn't always tell us what's coming next. He doesn't always show us the full picture. And that's where faith comes in. Think about Abraham. God told him, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. Now, if I were Abraham, I'd have some questions. Lord, where exactly am I going? What's the plan? How long will this take? But Abraham didn't demand all the answers. He trusted, he obeyed, and because of that, God led him into a future greater than anything he could have imagined. The same is true for you. You may not know what's next, but God does. You may feel like you're walking in the dark, but He is the light that guides your path. Sometimes we get so caught up in trying to figure out the details that we forget who is holding the blueprint. God has already mapped out your life, and He has accounted for every obstacle, every delay, and every detour. Nothing takes Him by surprise. Maybe right now you're in a season where you feel lost. Maybe things haven't worked out the way you thought they would. You've prayed, you've waited, but nothing seems to be changing. Can I tell you something? Delays are not denials. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean God isn't working. Sometimes He is preparing things behind the scenes in ways you can't even imagine. And other times, He is preparing you. I remember a time when I was praying for something specific, something I believed was a part of God's plan for my life. I was ready. At least I thought I was. But God kept saying, not yet. I didn't understand it at the time. I felt like he was holding me back. But looking back now, I can see why he made me wait. I wasn't as ready as I thought I was. There were lessons I needed to learn, character I needed to develop, and faith I needed to strengthen. And when the time was right, when God knew I was truly prepared, he opened the door. And I walked into something far greater than what I had originally asked for. God sees the bigger picture. We only see a small part, but he sees the beginning and the end. That's why he asks us to trust him. You may be in a situation right now that doesn't make sense. Maybe you lost a job, maybe a relationship ended, maybe an opportunity slipped through your fingers, and you're wondering, God, why? But what if that closed door is actually a blessing? What if God is redirecting you to something far greater? I once heard a story about a man who missed his flight. He was frustrated, angry, questioning why he had to be delayed. But later he found out that the very plane he was supposed to be on had experienced a serious emergency. That delay, which felt like an inconvenience, was actually God's protection. And how many times in our own lives has God protected us from things we never even knew about? Sometimes what feels like a setback is actually a setup for something better. Sometimes what seems like a failure is just a redirection toward God's perfect will. And the truth is, we may not always understand it in the moment. That's why the Bible says in Isaiah 55, 8-9, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts." God's ways are higher. His understanding is greater, and his plans for your life are better than anything you could ever dream up on your own. So what do we do in the waiting? What do we do when we don't know what's next? We trust, we lean on his promises, we keep walking in faith, knowing that the God who brought us this far will not leave us now. We stop trying to figure everything out on our own and start believing that he is working all things together for our good. And when we do that, when we surrender our plans, our worries, and our timelines to him, we find peace. A peace that surpasses all understanding. A peace that reminds us that we don't have to know every detail of the future, because we know the one who holds it. So let me ask you today, are you willing to trust him? Even when the road is unclear, even when the answers don't come right away, are you willing to believe that God knows what's next for you and that his plan is far greater than anything you could ever imagine? Because the moment you do, you'll step into a faith that is unshakable. You'll begin to see that God's hand has been guiding you all along, and one day you'll look back and realize he was leading you to something far greater than you ever dreamed. Life has a way of making us question where we are and why certain things happen the way they do. We look around and see others moving forward, people getting opportunities, stepping into their calling, reaching milestones, while we feel like we're standing still. And in those moments, it's easy to wonder, God, what about me? Am I forgotten? Did I miss something? Why does it feel like nothing is changing? But I want you to hear this today. Where you are right now is not a mistake. Every step you've taken, every experience you've had, every challenge you've faced, it's all been part of God's preparation for what's ahead. Nothing in your life is wasted. The delays, the detours, the struggles, and even the disappointments, God has been using them to shape you for what he has next. We often want to rush the process. We want to move from where we are to where we think we should be as quickly as possible. But God is more interested in preparing us than he is in promoting us too soon. Because here's the truth. Stepping into something before we're ready can be more dangerous than waiting. A blessing given too soon can feel like a burden. A door opened before its time can lead to disaster. That's why God allows us to go through seasons of preparation. He is not holding us back. He is equipping us for what's to come. Think about David. When he was just a boy, he was anointed to be the next king of Israel. But did he go straight to the throne? No, he went back to tending sheep. He spent years in the fields, learning, growing, and being faithful in the small things. And even after that, he didn't go straight to the palace. He went through trials. He faced giants. He ran for his life. He endured hardships. And through it all, God was preparing him. By the time David finally stepped into his destiny as king, he wasn't just a shepherd boy with a calling. He was a man who had been trained, refined, and strengthened through the very struggles he faced. The same is true for you. You may be in a season right now that doesn't make sense. You may feel like you're stuck in the waiting, doing things that seem insignificant. But let me tell you something. What feels small now is strengthening you for something greater. The skills you're developing, the lessons you're learning, the character you're building. It's all preparing you for what God has planned. I've met people who have said, I just feel like I'm going in circles. But sometimes God allows us to go through repeated challenges, not because He's forgotten us, but because He's making sure we're ready. You see, when God prepares you for something big, He doesn't just look at what you want, He looks at what you need. He makes sure you have the wisdom, the endurance, the patience, and the faith to handle what's ahead. Joseph understood this. As a young man, God gave him a dream that one day he would be in a position of great authority. But did it happen right away? No. First, he was thrown into a pit by his own brothers. Then he was sold into slavery. Then he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. From the outside, it looked like Joseph's life was falling apart. But in reality, every single one of those moments was preparing him for his future. The time in slavery taught him how to manage. The time in prison taught him perseverance. And when the moment finally came for him to step into his calling, he was ready. Not just because of his dreams, but because of the process he had been through. So let me ask you, what if the challenges you're facing right now are actually part of your preparation? What if the things you see as obstacles are actually opportunities for growth? What if God isn't delaying you? I know it's hard. I know there are days when you want to give up, when you question whether anything is ever going to change. But hear me on this. Nothing is wasted in God's hands. He uses everything. Even the things the enemy meant for harm, God will turn them around for good. Think about Moses. He spent 40 years in the wilderness before stepping into his calling. Why? Because God was preparing him. God was shaping him into the leader He needed him to be. Sometimes our preparation takes longer than we expect. But that doesn't mean God has forgotten us. It means He is being intentional. There are things you're walking through right now that don't make sense. There are prayers that seem unanswered, paths that seem blocked, and opportunities that feel just out of reach. But I want to encourage you. Don't let frustration make you walk away from the process. God is working even when you don't see it. You may feel hidden, but God has not overlooked you. He sees your faithfulness. He sees your obedience. And in the right time, in the perfect moment, He will open the door. And when He does, you'll be able to look back and understand why the preparation was necessary. Fear has a way of creeping into our hearts when we least expect it. It whispers doubts, stirs anxiety, and makes us question whether we're really on the right path. We start wondering if we've made the right decisions, if we've missed our opportunity, if we'll ever get to where we're supposed to be. And before we know it, fear has taken hold, paralyzing us, keeping us from stepping forward into what God has for us. But here's the truth. God never intended for us to live in fear. He calls us to walk by faith, not by sight. He asks us to trust Him even when we don't see the full picture. And yet, that's easier said than done, isn't it? Because faith means stepping out when we don't have all the answers. Faith means believing in God's promises even when our circumstances seem to contradict them. Faith means saying, Lord, I don't know how this will turn out, but I trust that you do. One of the greatest battles we face in life is the battle between faith and fear. Fear will always try to hold us back, but faith pushes us forward. Fear keeps us stuck, afraid to take risks, afraid to fail, afraid of the unknown. But faith reminds us that God is already in our future. He has already made a way where we can't yet see one. And He is simply asking us to trust Him enough to take the next step. Think about Peter. When he saw Jesus walking on water, he did something incredible. He stepped out of the boat. Now let's stop there for a moment. That boat represented security. It represented familiarity. It represented safety. And stepping out onto the water didn't make any sense. But Peter wasn't walking on logic, he was walking on faith. As long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he did the impossible. But the moment he looked at the waves, the moment he focused on the wind, fear took over, and he started to sink. That's what happens when we take our eyes off God and start focusing on the storm. The fear becomes louder than our faith. We start looking at all the reasons why things won't work out. We start listening to the voices that say we're not good enough, not strong enough, not capable enough. And before we know it, we've talked ourselves out of the very thing God is calling us to do. How many times has fear stopped you from moving forward? How many times have you hesitated when God was telling you to step out? Maybe He's placed a dream in your heart, but fear is telling you it's too big. Maybe He's calling you to something new, but fear is telling you you're not ready. Maybe He's asking you to let go of something, but fear is telling you you'll never recover. But let me ask you, what if you trusted Him? What if you believed deep down that God has already gone ahead of you, that He's already prepared the way, and that all He's asking you to do is take the next step? The enemy knows that if he can keep you afraid, he can keep you from fulfilling your purpose. He wants you to live in doubt. He wants you to second-guess every decision. He wants you so consumed with what-ifs that you never move forward. But God did not give you a spirit of fear. He gave you a spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. That means you don't have to be ruled by fear. That means you can walk in confidence, knowing that the God who created the universe is the same God who is ordering your steps. I think about Joshua. After Moses died, God told Joshua to lead the Israelites into the promised land. Now that was no small task. Joshua had seen the challenges ahead. The fortified cities, the giants, the battles that would need to be fought. And I'm sure fear tried to creep in. But over and over again, God told him, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. That was God's way of saying, Joshua, don't let fear stop you. I'm already ahead of you. I've already given you the victory. Just trust me. Andrews, God is saying to you today, don't let fear stop you. Don't let doubt keep you from moving forward. The enemy will always try to intimidate you, but God has already gone ahead of you. He is already fighting your battles. He is already making a way. And when you choose faith over fear, you'll begin to see His hand working in ways you never imagined. Maybe right now you feel like you're standing at the edge of something unknown. Maybe you know God is calling you to take a step, but fear is keeping you frozen. Can I challenge you today? Step out. Trust Him. Stop waiting for everything to be perfect. Stop waiting for all the details to make sense. God is not asking you to figure everything out. He's asking you to trust that He already has. There's a peace that comes when you stop trying to control everything and simply say, Lord, I trust you. A peace that reminds you that even if you don't know what's next, God does. A peace that tells you that you don't have to have all the answers because you serve a God who does. So today I want you to make a decision. Will you let fear hold you back, or will you choose faith? Will you stay in the boat where it feels safe, or will you step out and walk toward what God has for you? Because I can promise you this, when you choose faith over fear, when you trust God with what's next, you'll look back one day and realize that He was leading you every step of the way. There comes a moment in each of our lives when we stand at the threshold of something new. A door opens, an opportunity arises, a shift takes place, and suddenly we sense that God is leading us into the next chapter. But in that moment we face a choice: to step forward in faith or to hesitate, wondering if we're truly ready. And so often, instead of moving ahead with confidence, we let uncertainty hold us back. We wonder, is this really God's plan? What if I fail? What if I make the wrong decision? But here's what I want you to understand. When God calls you forward, He has already gone ahead of you. He is not sending you into the unknown without a plan. He is not leaving you to figure it out on your own. He has already prepared the way. And all He asks is that you trust Him enough to take the next step. One of the greatest tragedies in life is when people come to the edge of their calling, the edge of their breakthrough, the edge of everything they've been praying for, and they shrink back because of fear, doubt, or hesitation. They stand at the door God has opened for them, but instead of walking through it, they let insecurity and uncertainty convince them to stay where they are. They let the enemy whisper lies that they're not ready, not worthy, not capable. And before they know it, the opportunity passes and they wonder, what could have been? But that's not what God wants for you. He doesn't want you to live in regret, looking back on missed moments and wondering what would have happened if you had just stepped out in faith. He wants you to trust Him, to walk boldly into the future He has prepared for you, knowing that He is with you every step of the way. I think about the Israelites standing at the edge of the promised land. They had spent years in the wilderness, years of preparation, years of learning to trust God, and now the moment had finally come. They were right there on the brink of stepping into everything God had promised. But when they saw the giants in the land, when they saw the challenges ahead, they allowed fear to take over. They forgot about God's faithfulness. They forgot about the miracles He had performed to get them there, and because of their fear, they turned back. They missed out on the promise, not because God wasn't faithful, but because they refused to trust Him. And how many times do we do the same thing? How many times do we stand at the edge of something new, something greater, something that we've been praying for, and instead of stepping forward, we allow fear and doubt to hold us back? But listen, God is not calling you to retreat. He is calling you to move forward. He is calling you to step into the future He has designed for you, trusting that His plan is greater than your fears. When you hesitate, when you delay obedience, when you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you risk missing what God has for you. Because sometimes the only way to see God's hand at work is to take the step first. He doesn't always reveal everything in advance. He doesn't always show us the whole path. But when we trust Him enough to take one step, He lights the way for the next. I've met so many people who have said, I'm just waiting on God to give me a sign. And while there are certainly times when God gives us clear direction, there are also times when He is waiting on us to move. There are moments when He has already opened the door and He's just waiting for us to have the faith to walk through it. If you look throughout Scripture, you'll see that God never called anyone to stand still in fear. He always called them to move forward. When He parted the Red Sea, He didn't tell Moses to wait. He told him to stretch out his staff and walk. When Jesus called Peter to walk on water, he didn't tell him to sit in the boat and think about it. He told him to come. When God told Joshua to march around Jericho, he didn't say, wait until you understand everything first. He simply said, go. And I believe he's saying the same thing to you today. Stop waiting for all the details. Stop overanalyzing every possibility. Stop letting fear dictate your decisions. If God has put something in your heart, if he has opened a door, if he has given you confirmation that it's time to move, then take the step. Walk forward in faith. Because the same God who has been with you in the past will be with you in this next season. The same God who has provided before will provide again. The same God who has made a way before will make a way again. I don't know what you're facing today. Maybe you're standing at the edge of a major life decision. Maybe you feel God leading you in a new direction, but uncertainty is making you hesitate. Maybe you've been praying for an answer, and now that it's here, you're scared to step into it. But I want you to hear this. If God has brought you to this moment, he will carry you through it. He will not fail you. He will not abandon you. He will not lead you somewhere without giving you the strength to walk through it. And here's the beautiful thing. When you step out in faith, you will begin to see God move in ways you never imagined. Doors will open that you never could have opened on your own. Provision will come from places you never expected. Strength will rise up in you that you didn't even know you had. And when you look back, you will see that God was guiding you the whole time. So my question to you today is this. Will you trust him? Will you step forward in faith, believing that what he has ahead of you is far greater than anything you're leaving behind? Will you stop letting fear keep you from the life God has called you to live? Because when you do, when you take that step, when you walk through that door, when you say, Lord, I trust you no matter what, that's when you'll see his power in your life like never before. God knows what's next for you. He's already gone ahead. He's already prepared the way. And all he's asking is that you trust him enough to follow where he's leading. Because when you do, you won't just step into a new season. You'll step into everything he created you to be.